What if the greatest story ever told wasn't about events that happened thousands of years ago, but about what is happening right now, inside of you? For centuries, we've been taught to read books like Genesis and Exodus as literal history. But if we're honest, that view is full of holes. Are we really supposed to believe that the entire human race began with 2 English-speaking people in a Mesopotamian garden? Or that a snake literally talked one day? If you take these stories literally, they are biologically and historically impossible. But if you read them as symbols, they suddenly become incredibly profound. What if the talking snake, the forbidden fruit, and the Great Flood aren't dusty myths, but a coded map? A map detailing the precise evolution of human consciousness and the very structure of your own mind. Today, we are going to decode that map. We are moving beyond dogma and uncovering the psychological blueprint hidden within the Bible. To understand this code, we have to go back to the very first words. In the original Hebrew, the word used for the Creator in Genesis 1 is Elohim. Here's the secret that got lost in translation. Elohim is a plural noun. And more importantly, it represents both masculine and feminine principles. It signifies the dual nature of energy within creation itself. For centuries, patriarchal religious institutions suppressed this, translating a complex dual force into simply God, effectively erasing the divine feminine. But the original text tells us that creation is a dance of duality, and this duality continues with the creation of humanity. Consider the name Adam. In mystical traditions, this isn't just a guy's name. It is allegorically linked to the atom, the fundamental unit of physical life and energy. Adam represents the physical foundation. Then, the Bible says God took a rib from Adam to create Eve. This isn't crude surgery. This is the splitting of the atom. It symbolizes the moment consciousness emerged from physical matter. Eve represents the mental, creative principle emerging from the physical base. It is the birth of duality, complexity, and self-awareness. So if Adam and Eve are mental and physical principles, where do they live? They live in the Garden of Eden. Eden means delight, and this garden isn't in the Middle East. It is a symbol for the right hemisphere of your brain, the seat of creativity, intuition, love, and spiritual insight. It is that inner space of true knowing and rest. But how do we get there? The Bible gives us a ladder. The 7 days of creation are not a geological timeline. They align perfectly with the 7 chakras representing stages of spiritual and mental development. We move from the earth of the lower mind, through the waters of emotional truth, past the air of divine intellect, and into the fire of spiritual illumination. The goal is the 7th day, the Sabbath. This isn't about going to church on Sunday. The Sabbath is the state of ultimate rest and enlightenment. It corresponds to the crown chakra and the activation of the pineal gland. It is the moment your mind transcends the noise and enters the true garden of delight. If our minds are designed for Eden, why are we so stressed, confused, and suffering? The Bible explains this through the allegories of conflict. The story of Cain and Abel is the story of the war inside your head. Cain, the tiller of the soil, represents the lower, physical, laboring mind. Abel, the keeper of the sheep, represents higher divine thoughts. The conflict where Cain kills Abel is the daily reality where your lower reactive mind overrides your higher spiritual aspirations. That internal conflict is the source of human suffering, and what instigates this conflict? The serpent. The serpent isn't a literal devil. It symbolizes the human spine and the central nervous system. It represents the physical. Instinctual impulses rising from the body that tempt the mind with sensory desires, leading to confusion between what is truly good and what just feels good temporarily. This is the real original sign. It's not eating an apple, it is missing the mark. It is dwelling entirely in your reactive, emotional nature, sometimes symbolized as the moon god, instead of transcending it. When this lower nature takes over, the Bible speaks of the sons of God mixing with the daughters of men. This is the confusing mixture of high spiritual aspirations with base emotional desires, which leads to fanaticism and distortion. So, what's the solution? The flood. Noah's flood isn't a planetary disaster, it is an allegory for baptism, a massive purification. It is the cleansing of the lower mind, the earth, by the waters of truth, preparing your consciousness for a higher stage of evolution. When we stop reading these texts as history and start reading them as psychology, everything changes. We realize that the Bible isn't asking you to blindly believe in impossible ancient events. It's inviting you to participate in your own evolution. But this evolution isn't automatic. True spiritual progress requires discipline, requires sacrificing the lower mind, the Cain within you, so that the higher consciousness can flourish. It requires meditation, inner surrender, and the discipline to quiet the serpent of the lower instincts. The Garden of Eden is still there. It's waiting in the silent spaces of your right brain, past the noise of daily life. The map is in your hands. The rest is up to you. Thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper into the hidden wisdom of ancient texts, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. See you in the next video.